All this time watching what the world was doing as far as friends and family, which was they were getting more unhealthy, they were getting on more drugs, they were having serious side effects from just a poor lifestyle. And it seemed that everyone was clueless about it. Like this is just part of living. And for some reason, I knew it wasn't.
You're listening to the Nutrition World Podcast, a show about navigating the intricacies of holistic wellness. We're a natural health food store located in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we believe that optimal health and peak performance should be accessible to everyone. Hey, my name's Brian Strickland. I'm the producer of the show, and for our first couple of episodes, we really just wanted to introduce our host and share a little bit about what we do here at Nutrition World. So today I'm speaking with Ed Jones. He's the co-owner of Nutrition World, and I just talked to him about why he started a natural health food store over 40 years ago in Chattanooga, some of the bumps that he's seen along the way, some of the lessons that he's learned, where we are as an industry currently, and some of the things that we have to look forward to as a store moving forward. So we really hope that you enjoy this conversation. We're going to go ahead and jump right in. Here's my talk with Ed. Hey Ed, welcome to the new studio. We're so excited to finally get this going. This is something that we have obviously had in the works for a long time, and we've definitely had our fair share of technical difficulties, but we're glad to finally be doing it and get it up and running. This is our first episode of the Nutrition World Podcast, and today I really just wanted to talk to you kind of about your background, what it is about natural health that gets you so fired up, and just a little bit of the history about Nutrition World. So I think to start us off, if you could tell me just kind of your story a little bit of why Nutrition World, why over 40 years ago did you start a natural health food store in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where there was nothing like it, and what motivated you to do that?
Well, you almost were making me afraid when I even think back on it, because yes, it was one of a kind. There was no doubt. There was, I think, one little health food store named Arnie's Nutrition. Okay. And he actually played into part of my motivation. But to go back one further step, it was about 1967 when my dad had invited a Shackley salesman to our house, lived on Midland Pike, and she came in with an array of knowledge and also products. She talked about food and the power of healthy eating and how it can reduce disease, help us live longer, help us have less suffering. And she showed these bottles of special elixirs called vitamins. Mm-hmm. And I was mesmerized because all of a sudden the light went off. That was, if we can alter and lessen suffering simply by food must be an extremely powerful piece to the puzzle of living and aging gracefully. Mm-hmm. That was at about 9 years old. I was thinking that, well, at that point, there's nothing you can do in 1967 as about a fifth grader. That's what I was. But it never left me. And I started reading at the drugstores, the magazines, at G.C. Murphy's, at Eastgate. But I would start talking to pharmacists anytime we went to any drugstore, Eckerd's being the number one. Mm-hmm. And I'd ask the pharmacist about these nutrients and why does this say this? What does this do? And he would, for a few minutes, give me his grace and then get tired of talking. Well, there was a small little health food store, and I rarely talk about it, named Arnie's Nutrition in East Ridge. And Arnie was an ex-post office employee. He had a tremendous passion for health and healing, as I have accumulated myself. And he really liked talking to me. So I would ride my bicycle there, or I had a small little tiny mini like motorcycle moped when I got a license. And every day or every other day after school, I'd go to Arnie's. And he was in East Ridge. And we talked. He explained what homeopathic medicines were and what herbs did and showed me the bottle. And he was instrumental in further feeding that passion. Wow. And then I became a police officer, got married, and I had worked for GNC for one quick summer before that. And in the police car, a midnight shift, I would listen to cassette tapes on nutrition and healing and herbs and vitamins. All this time watching what the world was doing as far as friends and family, which was they were getting fatter, they were getting more unhealthy, they were getting on more drugs, they were having serious side effects from just a poor lifestyle. And it seemed that everyone was clueless about it. Like this is just part of living. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, I knew it wasn't. It had to be better options than just giving in to aging and disease and overweightness and feeling bad and anxiety and aches and pains. There had to be better ways, because what they were doing wasn't working. It was just barely treating the symptom. Well, at that time, I worked on the police department for 3 years, wonderful education for me, but I was born to be an entrepreneur, I believe, and also, but more so, a healer, if you wanted to use that general term for me. And I opened Nutrition World in 1979 on Mountain Creek Road. Most people probably don't remember that, but it was a mall that had a hopeful promise that didn't work out. Well, I was there for several years and then ended up coming to Brainerd Village and opening there. Had 2 stores for several years and then closed the one in Hickson and just maintained the one in Brainerd Village.
Okay. That's incredible. So even from a very, very young age, you had an interest in this industry and you made it happen. Even when there was just a single person in the area, you were bound and determined to figure out what was going on with that. That's awesome. Tell me about what it was like. I mean, you said you had this entrepreneur spirit. Was it scary opening a store at that time? I mean, you were fairly young at the time, right?
I was quite young. It's one of the blessings of being young is also being foolish. I think, if I knew at 21 what I knew at 50, I probably would not do as many things, because we got to have that Superman cape on sometimes to delve into the journey of life. And I think it's a wonderful part of life if you have some common sense to go along with it. But yes, looking back, it was a bad business plan. Had no experience. I hired one person and we worked very diligent and very hard. It took us over 3 years to finally break a $200 day at the store. I mean, if people shop a lot now, many people spend $200 themselves when they come in, if they're loading up on their supplements or on certain foods or pet food or whatever we sell. And I continued to work at the police department and did the store, and I was married. My wife worked at Unum. And so between all that, we could pay the bills. But I didn't earn anything for several years, which was fun because I was doing what I was brought to this earth to do, which is empower people with knowledge about the toolkit that can keep us healthier and make us hopefully stay alive more. Even if it doesn't make us stay alive more, the quality of life is what I'm after. I'm 64. I've lived a really darn good life. I want to live to be 94. But if I had not known what I've known, I would be like a 94-year-old now, and I'm not in most ways. I hobble around with some hip issues and bursitis, but other than that, I'm extremely pleased the payoff of my habits of my life.
Yeah. So when was it that you realized that, okay, this is a real thing? Like this business plan is going to work? Around what time did you think that this is something that could really take off?
It was many, many years. And what happened was in Brainerd Village, I had a small store, maybe 1,200 square feet. Having a vision of the future, we decided to, and if the old timers remember this, a garden store named Sid Varner's. He was a privately owned garden store, and he was in Brainerd Village. He passed away and they closed his store, and that's where I decided I'd move into. So it was 4 times, maybe 5 times bigger than the original store up in Brainerd Village. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? The overhead, of course, was substantial, very scary overhead. First year that we were open, we dropped 20% of business. We didn't even equal what we equaled in the small store. Very frightening, very much. But the next year it started turning around, and with working diligently 5 and 6 days a week for 42 years, we started catching momentum. Yeah. The more and more of the people who started reading and stories and just communication and interest started growing. Now, keep in mind, this was a time when the medical community, 99.9% of them did not approve of a nutrition store. It was voodoo. It was hokey. It was something you steer away from. So we had no support from anyone in this town, from any medical community, none whatsoever. And so we had to go journey on our own.
But that's changed though, right? I mean,
tremendously.
We now have a lot more support than we used to.
A whole lot more. We also have more studies. PubMed, which is the place where you can actually post real studies from scientific literature, we didn't have that then. So now when someone who's a skeptic can say, what do you mean that N-acetylcysteine, NAC, is good for the lungs? That's just a lie. No, it's not. PubMed has like 10, 20, 30,000 references of studies that you can examine. So it's not. We have a background now to fall back on that proves the value of food and supplements for not only maintaining health, but building your health back if you've been suffering through some disorder or disease.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about currently. We're now at a location on Lee Highway. How long have we been here at this location?
I'm terrible with exact memories, but I think about 12 to 13 years.
Okay. And I've been here 6 years, I think now. So looking forward now, obviously, the current state of affairs is really unique. We're going through a pandemic. I think people are much more aware of their health or lack of health than they've ever been before. So where do you see this industry going forward? What are some of the things that you think we could see in the years moving forward?
I'm very optimistic in most ways, always a little bit fearful of government intervention that's unfair based on agendas of profit and power, because the pharmaceutical industry is so powerful and they want to gobble up anything that competes against them. Well, we've seen a trend of pharmaceutical industries purchasing nutritional companies. So they are, in one arm of theirs is knowing the potential. The other arm is we're not really sure what's going on. Right. Is that a method to get more control, or is it not? Time will tell. I think there's no way that you can continue to smother truth, and the truth of intervention with lifestyle supplements has come, and I don't think it's going to go. Yeah. And we also have more and more physicians who are so interested in what we can term integrative or functional or holistic methods to help their patients. The hard part is that insurance companies control so much of how much time a normal physician can spend. They can't do that. You cannot spend 11 minutes with a patient and ask them about their sleep, their food, what are they eating, talk about testing for certain things that may improve their health, not just look for diseases. It can't happen in 11 minutes. So we're seeing a bigger group of concierge physicians who can spend the time. It's all about time. A physician long ago said in history, if you let a patient talk long enough, they will diagnose their own disease. It's so true, because I have worked very hard to become a skilled listener. I'd rarely, unless I'm in a hurry, I will let the person tell me, and they ended up telling themselves what they need to hear without realizing it. I just make some clarity to the situation.
Yeah. Having that personal relationship is really important when it comes to health, because the more we know about people and their lifestyle, their eating habits, the more that we can determine what may or may not be good for them, correct?
Well, it's the only method. Yeah. If not, you're floating in the dark. And I use the analogy of a tree. You look at a tree, and we have two trees in our nutritional world because of this example. You got a tree, it has its root structure, and it has the upper structure with all the leaves. And if I'm not being harsh, but traditional thinking on health generally only looks at the leaves. If the leaves are wilting, they're diseased, or the bark on the tree is having some trouble, we're going to throw something on it. We're going to give it a chemical. We're going to kill this. We're going to do this. And you know what? The leaves might look better for a bit, but the reason 99% of the time the leaves are suffering, or the tree outside the ground, is because the root structure, the nutrition, the acid-alkaline balance, enough water, enough sunshine, enough this, enough that. We need to look into humans' root system. And that root system isn't done by a 11-minute consultation with a CBC blood test and then writing 2 prescriptions. It can't be done. Right. And so we have, at this point, we have 17 practitioners who believe the way I do, or they wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. And we also keep a big communication with other people outside our circle, so we can empower other people who need these services. Because going down the traditional route is sometimes going to work, but most of the time, if it's chronic, usually it doesn't.
Yeah, it's more about symptom masking than it is about healing a lot of the time, unfortunately. So given your experience, obviously you've been doing this for a long time. You've seen trends come and go. Are there any that stick out to you over the 40 plus years that you've been doing that you were like, wow, this is really unique. And this is something that not only I want to implement in my own life, but I think that will stick around for a really long time.
Well, there were trends that were quite powerful that we all forget with years passing, had to do with food. One of which was the biggest demise of this country was the myth that fat causes us to be unhealthy. What happened when all that came out and they looked at rabbits who had heart disease, they looked at this yellow stuff called cholesterol, and all of a sudden it went crazy, kind of like in today's world, except crazy on a different level. Oh, fat's killing us. We need to eat low-fat foods. We need to run from fat. All of that has been a demise for this country because what happened is everybody started buying low-fat food, which means high-carbohydrate food. It generally isn't protein, it's high carbs. And we've created a nation full of 40% obesity and insulin resistance and because we had about 25 years of low-fat eating. It's simply doomed us. And I'm a person who believes heavily in healthy fats, not unhealthy, in every single meal, from olive oil to coconut oil to avocados to MCT oil that helps burn body fat. And we deal with people all the time who just cannot mentally bring themselves to eat healthy fat because they spent so much time being indoctrinated of that. Well, that has hopefully changed a lot. We're helping to do that in our little world here. And then supplementally, there's been some supplements like, let's just use the example coenzyme Q10. Anyone who takes a statin drug, the statin drug is absolutely known to lower this level of what we call coenzyme Q10. Guess what happens to the body when the coenzyme Q10 is low? The heart gets weak. We're giving statin drugs to supposedly help the cardiovascular system, but yet we're going to create a deficiency, but we're not going to tell the patient. Our industry has sued the FDA on numerous occasions to have a warning on the box of statin drugs that says, if you're taking a statin, please consider a coenzyme Q10. Lost every time in court. Why is that? I'm not going to answer the question, but it's not fair to the public that they're not getting this information. We can share, and I share very vocal and I'm very passionate, but our circle's still small. If we want to reach the big public, we need some cooperation between the powers that be. And luckily, some physicians are verbally telling their patients, but it's not on the literature. And there's so many of these examples of nutrients that came to the surface that then some of these were, I won't say stolen, but then they were taken by pharmaceutical companies and then put into their prescription pads at 5 to 10 times the cost. But so the trend is kind of all moving positive, but we have to tweak it, and I want it to go the right way, not in the ditches.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll wrap it up here in just a minute. But lastly, let's talk about Nutrition World as a store, because that is a very unique part of who you are and what we do as a company. Obviously, there have been many changes that have occurred, not only locations, but even the way that we do business, what's become popular. So as you look at our current business and look towards the future, what are some of the things that you would like to see Nutrition World as a company move towards? Well, we are growing. Thank goodness. We had a wonderful year. COVID has been a curse and a blessing for many people, but in our industry, it has awakened so many who are treading water. They knew that health, diet, supplements were important, and I'm going to do it tomorrow. Well, now they've seen the devastation of what happens if you're low on vitamin D, you're overweight, you've got this, you've got that. We now know that we are sitting ducks, not just because of this one thing coming around. It was just a matter of time that we're sitting ducks for something if we don't have this pharmacy within and we access that when we need it. And so the future to me is very bright as long as we're not overly regulated. I don't think we will be. The grassroots effort for this is amazingly strong. I have great promise. I think the practitioners are growing and I say this often, we all need a team approach to aging gracefully. And I don't care when I say aging, I'm talking 25 years old and up, which means your regular practitioner,
that you have a UTI, you have an ankle that's sprained, you have a diagnosis you don't know about, you go to them. They're great. That's what they do. That's what they're trained for. But you need other team members to help support healing. If you think you're going to get healing at a regular, traditional, insurance-based doctor office, it's not going to happen. It's just not. And that's okay. But what's not okay is that we need to have people who realize that and just build that little bit more of a pod of people that you trust, you have experience. You don't wait till you're sick to do this. You do it before you get relationships. I went and had a massage this morning. I have my chiropractor. I have my acupuncturist. I have the people that I may not see for a whole year, but if I need them, they're there. Yeah. So I'd encourage people to build this relationship, not only with practitioners, but with a local store who can help you with answers and the right choices of products, whether it be nutrition, pet food, cosmetics, foods of all kind. Because keto diets, I mean, you name it, it takes some expertise to know how to journey down that path. And with 27 employees at this point, and the fact that I've made this business a career business for people. It's not a work this year and go move on. We have people who are extremely expertise in regard to how they can talk and how they can express themselves.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I mean, that's really at the core of what we do and what we believe. It's a holistic approach to health. It's not any single one thing that is going to make you healthy, because we're complex beings. We have mental health issues. We have physical health issues. There are all sorts of things that we can benefit from when it comes to that holistic approach. So that's really encouraging to hear. Well, I think that will do it, Ed. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I really appreciate you taking the time, and you'll be back. We've got plenty more to come that we're really looking forward to. So,
well, thank you. And yes, the stuff coming up is, again, going back to, and I feel like, and I believe you certainly agree, empowering people in whatever method possible, without the agenda of selling. It's agenda of education. And that is the key, because we have to, these are complex little vehicles here, and you wouldn't get a brand new camera or a bicycle. I just bought an electric bicycle. I mean, everything requires looking in and figuring it out, but nothing's quite as complex as this big idea of foods and exercise and nutrients and sleep. And we need helpers along this way. Life's always giving us a test, and we need to show up for that test every day. And that showing up alone is half the battle. And then you find the right people, you've got it conquered when you can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Ed. We'll be back soon.
Thank you.